I started the Family Classics series a little over a decade ago with the intention of creating a platform for families and children to learn more about classical ballet. In one short hour, with one intermission, you get a full classical ballet with a narrator telling the story so that kids and people who don't know ballet can start to understand how storytelling is done in the ballet world. This year, we're producing Aladdin, choreographed by Ballet West Principal Rehearsal Director Pamela Robinson Harris and Peggy Dolkus. This work is funny, it is entertaining, it tells the magic story of Aladdin, so don't miss it.
Welcome back to New American Youth Ballet Presents. I'm your host, Elizabeth Flores. Today, I am honored to have the Artistic Director of Ballet West with us today, Adam Sklute. And thank you so much for taking the time in your busy schedule. They're preparing for Aladdin at the end of the month. We're currently in March, and you just finished with Cinderella, is that correct?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we did. We finished Cinderella in February, and it went wonderfully well. It's a beautiful, spectacular production. Sir Frederick Ashton, we're one of the very few companies in the United States to do this work. And of our 7 programs that we produce for our main stage a year,
Wow.
we're getting ready for our annual family series. And our Family Classic series is a program I devised, which is for our second company, our trainees, and our younger students to perform on the main stage in a shortened ballet. This is a way of engaging younger kids and families who don't know anything about ballet to come and see it. So in about an hour and 15 minutes with one intermission, so like 2 25-minute segments, they get a wonderful story this year, Aladdin, and along with the music and the dancing, we have narration. So there is a narration sort of telling what the action is. And I thought that this was a wonderful way to introduce children into understanding what ballet movement and ballet mime and all of these things can mean in the context of storytelling. And so this is one of the things that I love. This Aladdin is one of my favorites that were created by our principal rehearsal director, Pamela Robinson Harris. It's hilariously funny. It goes back to the original tale from 1001 Nights, and is just a marvelously engaging way to get kids involved in classical ballet.
And why do you think it's important to keep ballet entertaining? And I remember you describing your season like a beautiful meal, where you sort of you can challenge people's palates or give them something more familiar. Why is it so important to you to bring different ages and different demographics into the theater?
Well, I feel like we all have different tastes and different things that we like. And I think that the art form of ballet, it's always been a passion of mine to show the world that it doesn't have to be just one thing. It can be many, many things. You know, right after Aladdin, which is a wonderful story program, we're going into a program of 3 works by Igor Stravinsky.
I mean,
Now,
that's heavy stuff.
yeah,
That's
it is
great.
if you hear the words 3 works by Igor Stravinsky, but if you see the ballets, if you already have an enjoyment in seeing movement and dance, these ballets are very exciting and physical and moving, and the music is fascinating, from Kilian's Symphony of Psalms, Balanchine's Apollo, and our own former resident choreographer Niccolo Fonte's version of Rite of Spring, where it rains on stage at the end. So I mean,
Yeah.
really dramatic stuff. But polar opposite from Aladdin,
Right.
polar opposite from Ashton's Cinderella or the Nutcracker. And that to me has always been the great joy of our art form, is that we can produce these kind of things and give different people a different experience in dance.
And it just sounds like a fun place to be on the sidelines watching. I remember you describing the Nutcracker. It's almost like vaudeville kind of feeling. It moves quickly. And I think, I've certainly done my share of ballet productions where you see people out in the audience, and it does certain productions don't grab everybody. They just can't stay with it. And by keeping it fun and entertaining and moving forward, and then giving people a dose of Stravinsky and the Rite of Spring and these like real nuggets of education and classics, and to hear it with a live orchestra. Do you, how do you feel about ballet companies performing with live music? Why is that even important?
Well, to me, ballet has always been a sort of entire theater experience. In fact, that's how I got started. You know, I was almost 17 when I started dancing. And when I was a kid, I sang, I performed in plays, I sculpted, I painted, I played some sports, lacrosse and some basketball. And I really played the piano. I really wasn't very good at any of it. And mostly because, as much as I liked it, I didn't feel passionately connected. And I realize that that's so much a part of who I am, is I have to feel that way about something. When I started dancing and started ballet, that was where that passionate connection came. All of a sudden, here was everything rolled into one. The music that I loved, the art that I loved, the athleticism that I loved. And so to me, the art form has always been that: theater, music, athleticism, art, and you can get it in so many different ways. This is why, to me, live music is such an integral part of the production. And now sometimes there are pieces that were designed to be created to do electronic music or popular music, and all of those are wonderful also. But when something was written for an orchestra, for a symphony or something like that, isn't it wonderful that we would be able to produce that the way the composer had envisioned it?
And it breathes on stage. It's a communication with the dancers and the orchestra.
Well, it's a very different experience. You're right, for the dancers. I mean, you know, when you have a recording, the recording is what it is, and you get used to the tempi, and you get used to the different accents that that particular recording brings out, and
Yes.
there's less nuance. This also, because I was sort of talking at first from an audience's perspective, but as you bring up, from a dancer's perspective, it is incredibly enlivening and incredibly important for their development as an artist to be
Yes.
able to work with live music and manage those nuances.
I also ask from another point of view, which is there's a challenge behind financially having a live orchestra. Often companies, that's one of the things that goes to the side. Even some of the greatest companies in Europe sometimes go to recordings because it's so expensive. But you know, when I teach, like, all the parents know the value of getting a music education for their children. Nobody can dispute that. But sometimes people, for fundraising purposes, oh, why can't you use a recording? But the thing is, these musicians, they grow up. These are jobs. This is such an important thing to keep going. And the fact that you have productions where people can bring their young children, they're designed for young children where it's not too much, where you have an intermission, you have a dose that you can tolerate, you know. It's so important because they grow up, and these will be our future sponsors to keep
Exactly.
this train on its tracks going forward. It's just
Exactly. I mean, we do so much more than, I think, just employ dancers and put on a show for we employ hundreds of people, from musicians who have worked so hard to become well versed in their craft, and here's an opportunity for them to be able to perform and get paid by it. We
yes,
employ artisans and, you know, production staff who do the type of unique work that it takes to create a stage picture, from whether it's lighting or sets or props or costuming, all of those things. And yeah, we don't just build dancers, we build future audiences, we build future
yes,
enthusiasts. And so to me, it's all about continuing the art form in one way or
yes, yes. And you have been the artistic director, is it about 16 years now?
another. This is my 18th year
Oh,
as
forgive me.
artistic director. No, no apologies. I forgive me, because I keep on, I'm like, after our founder, I am the longest running artistic director in Ballet West history.
Wow, what an amazing legacy. You know, I remember, and I don't, it was probably before you were, perhaps then for 18 years, it was before that, but I remember Ballet West did, in Binghamton, they came with Romeo and Juliet. And I was a kid in the audience, and it struck my heart, and I still remember it. Just the emotion and the way it just reached me. And Ballet West has such a history. What is it like? Is it everything you expected? What's like? What have you felt in this amazing role in dance history?
Well, look, I never lose sight of the fact that I am incredibly blessed. I think any of us who have been given the opportunity to work in a field that we love and that we are passionate about are blessed. And so I'm grateful for that. And I'm always grateful every day. Um, Frankly, one of the reasons why it boggled my mind when I realized that this was my 18th season is because it's zoomed by so quickly. It has just flown on
Isn't
by.
that a nice thing to say about a job? That's really great.
Every day I come in and there are challenges. I mean, don't get me wrong. I jokingly said once, well, no, I don't always like my job, but I always love my job. I
Hmm.
love it because it is my art. I'm here to support and develop artists. I feel like I like being a public servant is how I look at myself, my work. I'm here for other people. I'm trying to make other people bring joy and beauty into their lives, help support their careers and build their careers. And though that to me is constantly engaging. So for me, that's the biggest gift. When I arrived at Ballet West, it had gone through a lot of challenges, and it was in a sort of complicated part. And I got three major mandates from the board, which was build the caliber and quality of the artists, build the notoriety of the company, both nationally and internationally, and build the school. And
No small tasks.
no small tasks.
No.
But everything that I do and every time I make a decision, I say, is that in service to these tasks that I've been given? And that's what keeps me inspired and keeps me moving forward and keeps me focused on what I'm doing. I was so overjoyed that in a city, a smallish city, I mean, if we count even suburban areas of Salt Lake City, I mean, there may be 1 million people all put together. The downtown certainly is only a few 100,000. That we're able to sustain a ballet company, sustain a symphony, sustain an opera company, sustain a number of modern dance companies and a number of theater companies. I mean, that speaks to the public and our community's love of the arts. That at this point now, our budget has more than doubled since I started, to the point where our operating budget is sustainably the 9th largest operating budget of any ballet company in America. And
Wow.
of that statistic, we serve, I think, the 40th largest city in America. So, I mean, that again is so inspiring.
That's quite an accomplishment that,
Yeah.
maybe people outside of this field don't understand how very challenging it is, of all the expenses that go into putting on a beautiful production. And
it's not easy. I mean, but
no.
again, that there's nothing to complain about, because when you love something, you dive into it and you work. And it's
Yes.
not always fun, but it's always wonderful, and I
Yes.
make that distinction because I thought to myself, the minute I stop loving what I'm doing is the time I need to stop, or if people stop loving what I'm doing, then it's the time to stop. And I haven't felt that yet. So I'm very grateful for every moment that I've had at Ballet West and for every opportunity. Our academy, when I arrived, was in a very complicated spot. It had approximate less than 150 students, and the board was considering closing it down because it was draining money from
Oh,
the
wow.
organization.
Wow.
This is one of the reasons I was given that task. We now have 4 campuses across the Utah region, the Salt Lake City area, and we have close to 1,000 students.
Yes.
So, I mean, this is wonderful. We have our downtown campus where we train really professionally bound students with a professional training division. We have our Trolley Corners campus, which is about 15, 20 minutes away, where a lot of our little ones and our adult beginners train. We have a campus up in Park City. We have a campus down in Pleasant Grove in Utah Valley, County, and all of them are bringing ballet and bringing Ballet West's brand of ballet to the community. And it matters tremendously.
Yes.
Of the company, 90% of the company are graduates of Ballet West 2, the second company, and now approximately 50% of them have come from the company, from the school, from the ground up. So I've been able to show a really deep commitment to training dancers who will come into Ballet West
Right.
and that progression. These things are thrilling. I mean,
Yes.
that's why I say that time has just flown by.
That's wonderful. And you say you really began dancing at 17. If you could go back to 18-year-old Adam, what advice would you give yourself as a young
Oh,
dancer that you wish somebody stopped you and said?
goodness, it's complicated. I think it's, again, have to be a pretty nuanced answer, because the 18-year-old self said, I am going to become a professional dancer, to my parents, who, as they had no problem with the art form or me dancing, that was not a problem. They just felt that at the age of 18, after barely a year of study, that it was an unreasonable expectation that I was going to become a professional. And because, again, when my determination and passion to do something is ignited, I go, that was all I needed to hear. So in a
Wow.
way, I am very glad that I had this sort of singular mindset, and that I was not going to take no for an answer.
Yes.
Along the way, I think there were a lot of things I could have done differently, that probably would have made my performing career easier and better. But I was blessed all along the way. I mean, I became a professional with the Joffrey Ballet at 19, after barely 2 years of
Wow.
study. Robert Joffrey, I'm one of the last two dancers Robert Joffrey hired himself. And he said to me, and I will never forget this, he looked at me and he said, Adam, I am going to take you into my company against my better judgment. But you are smart, so I know you're going to succeed. Now you just have to learn how to dance. And I spent my entire performing career
Wow.
actually learning how to dance. So I don't know if that's a recommended path for anyone per se, but if I hadn't had those opportunities, I don't know if I'd be here today.
Yeah, because that's a very short amount of time to zoom that fast. And it sounds like when you came in with the challenges, 150 students, a program almost ready to be scrapped, you took that and, oh my goodness, over 1,000 students and where it's come. I mean, that's a really inspiring story. And I think it's
Well,
important.
and it is a big team effort. I mean, I don't want to put it all on my shoulders. I think one of my greatest gifts is being able to work with people who are smarter than I am, and that is where we have such a wonderful team of people. And I feel like what I've been able to do is bring these people together and do their work. I mean,
Yeah.
our education and outreach program now reaches over, 145,000 Intermountain people, children, adults, both with dance backgrounds and not at all, a year, 145,000 a year. We actually have the largest one in the country and possibly even the world of education outreach programs. That is thanks to our education outreach director, who was doing a number of different jobs when I arrived. And I sat with him and said, where does your passion lie? And we talked about this, and he said, let me focus on this part. And I did, and look what he's done with that program. So again, it's about putting the right people in the right place, of working together. And that's also exciting to me.
Yes. And now I know you have Aladdin coming up.
Yeah.
Audience members, what can we do? We can go online, we can get tickets.
So it's very easy. For if you want to come and see Aladdin, you can go right on to balletwest.org. That's balletwest.org, and go to performances, and we'll find you, and you can get tickets for Aladdin. It's perfect for young children and for families who don't know a lot about ballet. Like I said, it's about an hour and 15 minutes with one intermission in the middle. And there's a narrator and stuff. If someone wants something a little headier, not long after that, we have this all Stravinsky program. If some people want something a little bit more, how should I say it, cutting edge and intimate, you can go to the Rose Wagner Theater to see our Works from Within program. So all of these you can find on our website, balletwest.org, and get tickets.
And a question I know you probably get asked a lot, but for audiences watching this the first time, tell us about America's First Nutcracker. What does that mean?
America's First Nutcracker. So the Nutcracker premiered in the world in 1892 in St. Petersburg, Russia. And it did mediocrely well. It didn't do so well as a ballet itself. In the United States, only the Nutcracker suite by small touring companies, or the Ballet Russe, even larger touring companies, would be seen. There was never a full-length version of the Nutcracker created in America until our founder, Willem Christensen, created his version in 1944. This was the very first full-length version that was created in America. About 10 years later, George Balanchine created his version for the newly formed New York City Ballet. And then that was the year also that Willem Christensen moved back to Utah, where he produced this Nutcracker. And since the mid-1950s, we have had a solid unbroken run. So America's first full-length version of the Nutcracker is at Ballet West and is to date one of the longest running Nutcrackers in the world.
That's such a cool fact.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, it sure is. And is there anything else that we should put across on this that you would like people to know is unique about Ballet West? It seems like just such a wonderful place to dance, whether you're in the studio or in the audience. I really like the feeling I get.
Well, I appreciate that very much. I think it's a wonderful place to dance. Our audiences seem pleased with what we're doing. And so again, is just to reiterate that really in any given season, and we're about to announce our next year's season, so very soon on the website, you'll be able to see that too. Any given season, you can see something completely different from one show to the next. And so if your taste is for something more classical and tutu oriented, we've got plenty of that. If your taste is something more modern and athletic, we have plenty of that. If you want some real good storytelling and theater, both children's type theater or adult theater, you can see any of that too. And that's really what our philosophy is, and my philosophy, which is that Ballet West produces something for everyone.
And for people who want to support Ballet West, on the website, is there an option to make a donation? So
there is indeed. You can go to the website and find donate, and we would be grateful, because ticket sales only make up one fraction of our revenue, and we rely so heavily on the generosity of our wonderful donors and our wonderful patrons. So we are a not-for-profit organization. The only reason we need money is to be able to produce art for you all.
And how many dancers in the company?
We currently have just about 40 dancers in the main company and 14 in the second company.
Nice, nice. Well, I've so enjoyed this. I don't want to take up too much time. I'm sure you have a busy day of rehearsals and all kinds of things going on with the show so close. Pleasure talking.
Thank you.
Today.
I really appreciate it. Lovely to meet
so
you, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Our spring program is a particularly unique look at the wide and varied range of the brilliant 20th century composer Igor Stravinsky. 3 works that are so completely different you wouldn't believe it was the same composer. From the elegant purity of his 1928 Apollo, choreographed by George Balanchine for the great Ballet Russe, to the somber elegance of his Symphony of Psalms, sung by a full chorus and orchestra in our performances live. This is a magical work that takes people to another realm, and this is a Ballet West premiere by the great Yuri Killian. Finally, the wild abandon of Niccolò Fonte's Rite of Spring. The Rite of Spring brought riots to the theater in 1913 when it first premiered. Come and see why this is such a dynamic, explosive work. The whole program does not only show the varied range of composer Stravinsky, it also shows the great breadth and scope of our Ballet West dancers. I started the Family Classics series a little over a decade ago with the intention of creating a platform for families and children to learn more about classical ballet. In one short hour, with one intermission, you get a full classical ballet with a narrator telling the story so that kids and people who don't know ballet can start to understand how storytelling is done in the ballet world. This year, we're producing Aladdin, choreographed by Ballet West Principal Rehearsal Director Pamela Robinson Harris and Peggy Dolkus. This work is funny, it is entertaining, it tells the magic story of Aladdin, so don't miss it.
Thanks for watching New American Youth Ballet Presents on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. If you have an idea or a ballet educational program you would like to feature on the show, please give us an email at newamericanYouth@yahoo.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.